Welcome to Badaboom. I'm Chris. On this episode, we review Rook Exodus, written by Geoff Johns, art by Jason Fabok, with colors by Brad Anderson, and letters by Rob Leigh. The team that brought you Batman 3 Jokers returns with a sci-fi epic that is Beastmaster meets Elysium. Following the main character Rook, a former farmer on Earth who must fight for survival on his new planet Exodus, where, like Earth, humans have plundered to the brink of extinction, with it being overrun by Wardens who can control animals with helmets. Releasing on April 3rd, Ghost Machine Day, Rook Exodus is shaping up to be the Green Lantern of the Ghost Machine world. Listen in and bada boom.
Hey guys, welcome to Badaboom. Today we are talking about Rook Exodus. It's Ghost Machine Day, so all three of the books coming out from Ghost Machine are happening. And one of the ones that's taking place outside of the unnamed universe is Rook Exodus. And it's a really cool book. It's been described as a fusion kind of between technology and nature. And Geoff Johns kind of said that it reminds him the most of Green Lantern, which really intrigued me and which really made me want to dive deeper into it and try and see really what the story is about. But Chris, before I go off on this book, what do you have to say about Rook Exodus?
Yeah, so with Rook Exodus, you have Geoff Johns reteaming with Jason Fabok, who they collaborated with on Justice League and Batman 3 Jokers, two of the biggest books of the last couple years. And, sort of that description that Jeff gave is if the way the world is set up is that you have it's post-apocalyptic, so it's a little bit like the Unnamed. But, it's an alternate universe where, we have drained the Earth of all its resources, and now we go to other planets. But now these people that work on these other planets have these helmets that allow them to communicate with animals. And that's kind of what really sort of is the hook of this book. And you could kind of see those Green Lantern parallels, but in terms of the lore, like this first issue, like Red Coat, is 48 pages, and there's a lot stuffed in it. You have Rook, the main character, you have his background, which we haven't seen. They appeared in the Ghost Machine one shot, but I was surprised at how emotional some of it is. Like the
Yo,
the
yeah.
scenes on Earth, spoiler alert, his dad dies and he has nothing left on Earth, his farm, he sells it and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna start over somewhere else. And like humans, we destroy these other Earths, so it's like, let's get off this. But he really has no farm to sell on this new planet. So instead of, selling it to, get off a planet, he's been stranded and now he has to, look for parts to create a new ship. And that's kind of really the setup. But I was really sort of impressed with just Fabok's art is just like super epic. If you've read like Dark Side War, those like big splash pages. There's like this big dude I that has like he could control bears, and like there's a huge like 2-page spread where these bears are like they look like mountains how big they are. So I can only imagine how hard it was to draw. So we just have this epic storytelling, and I'm really intrigued in terms of the world with this stuff. With Redcoat and Geiger, a lot of that world has been established through Geiger and Junkyard Joe, so you have some familiarity with some of the stuff going on. But Rook, it's a completely new world and it feels very different from the other stories we've seen so far.
Yeah, it really is because it's like you said, it's not Earth. And there's tons of things that they've done to this planet to try and make it like Earth. But as the planet is dying and failing, which the planet is called Exodus, which is why it's in the title. As the planet is dying, everything that they've done to try and make it more like Earth is on steroids. Like all the animals are getting crazy big and large, and there's not many people left on the planet because they're all dying in the attempts to get off the planet. The richer people, it appears, have already left the planet on their own, and they said, "Hey, we'll come back for the workers like Rook and the other wardens that have the helmet to communicate with animals." But some people are trying to get off on their own, and they don't really make it. And Rook's trying to scavenge parts from their ships so that he can hopefully successfully build his own ship. And it seems like a pretty lonely existence. I mean, like there's only three people besides Rook that we kind of see in this first issue, and he even lives in a city all by himself. So it's definitely feels it's a little bit depressing at times, and he only really has one friend, which is another warden that can communicate with pigs called swine, and he's just trying to really survive and eventually get off the planet. But the first issue doesn't make it seem like that's going to be a strong possibility at the moment.
Yeah, the thing I would kind of compare it to kind of like a mix of that movie Elysium with Matt Damon and then also Wally. Like
Yeah.
strangely enough, you have these people sort of leaving the planet. But what's so crazy about that second planet, it's like, wait, like how badly did you guys fuck up that you messed up this planet in probably less than 20 years? They had their again, those big cities, it's all, you know, decimated, but it's really cool just in terms of the world, like if you're a fan of The Last of Us and sort of like those post-apocalyptic worlds, like Rook is something that's really epic. And what's great, and when we were talking with the Ghost Machine team, particularly Jason Fabok, you could kind of see that like, hey, like we don't want to hold back. Sometimes you read certain comics and you're like, hey, like is this a movie pitch or something like that? Like Rook in its current form, yes, there's a lot of parallels between things that already exist in movies and TV, but you're like, I don't know how they would possibly make this anywhere close to what the art looks like in just terms of the scale. You're like, just these first 48 pages, you're like, this is kind of like unfilmable in terms of like budgets, which is great if you're a fan of just great like comic art and storytelling. So this, I would say out of the three is the most epic in terms of like the scope of the Ghost Machine book so far.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's one of the scenes that is just like crazy, and how would you put this into a movie? It's like there's giant abandoned cities, there's like bears the size of elephants fighting pigs the size of bears. So like it is really like an epic comic, like the amount of detail and drawings, the scope of what's in some of these panels. Like you're seeing an overview of a city that's incredibly detailed, and like you can look at it and really see how this planet that they've been on has really just been drained of the resources, and how it's been abandoned so quickly. So it's a crazy apocalyptic world that it's gonna be a lot of fun to dive deeper into. And the great thing about it is that it already feels like you said, if this was a movie, I feel like we'd already maybe be 20, 30 minutes into it. And we're only like 48 pages or so. So when the next issue comes out and the next one, it's going to be a continuation of this as like a long movie or a series, but it has that epicness that doesn't seem like it's going to be going away anytime soon.
And as we talked about, what's great about, Jeff and Jason, because they've worked together, they're able to kind of like, really sort of dive into like in short bursts. Obviously, there's a lot of action and there's big scope, but there's some really great character moments like we were talking about, like on Earth, where you really get a sense of like why Rook is the way he is. And you see the way he sort of interacts with Swine. And then also another warden, Direwolf, who also has a crazy design. The way she looks is pretty cool. Just seeing that and sort of how they play off those things, like, there's definitely like an emotional center. And if you're kind of breaking down the three books, obviously Geiger's the anchor, he's kind of like the Batman of the Ghost Machine universe, where, he's had the most books. So you're able to kind of like do certain things with the story. Redcoat is probably the most like fun and bombastic, and you have sort of like this guy everyone hates but you kind of like him main character. And then Rook is this sci-fi epic in the vein of what Jeff was able to do with Justice League and Green Lantern, but it's definitely looks like they're challenging themselves to explore different things, which is cool. So if you're a fan of those things, this is for you, but also it kind of gives you a little bit of something different. Like Rook is probably of the Ghost Machine books, the character you've seen the most in terms of like on the covers, there's been posters. So, obviously he has the coolest design, But it was cool that they were able, when you read the book, that it's like, okay, it's not just how good this looks. This is a very intriguing story that I'm definitely excited to see where they go with it.
Yeah. And if you haven't yet, make sure you go to your local comic book shop, put Rook on your pull list, get it on April 3rd when it comes out. It's Ghost Machine Day. And let us know what you guys think about this first issue. Give us your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what you're looking forward to seeing. What do you think is going to happen next with these characters? And with that, bada boom.
Bada boom.
Thank you for listening to the Badaboom podcast. Keep the conversation going with Chris and I on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. You can find us on all these places at Badaboom Podcast. Get into the comments on our YouTube channel. Let us know what you like about the show or what you'd like to hear from us in the future. Until next time, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Thanks for listening.